Hue, Vietnam, 1965. A war-torn city where the ground shook with artillery fire and young people grew up in a society so fractured it couldn't meet their spiritual needs. But in the middle of all that chaos, one man decided to build something that would outlast the violence. His name was Ngo Dong, and what he created would eventually spread across an ocean and survive for generations. This is the story of Cuong Nhu. Hard, soft. Cuong Nhu. The name itself tells you what it is. A martial art that refuses to choose between power and grace, between force and flow. And the man who founded it, he didn't come from some mountain monastery or ancient lineage. He came from the streets of Hanoi, where he and his brothers tested their skills against hustlers and professional fighters in back alleys, despite their father being the Attorney General of Northern Vietnam. You'd think the son of such a prominent man would stay out of trouble, but Ngo Dong and his brothers were different. They were obsessed. They wanted to know what worked when fists were actually flying and reputations were on the line. As a child, Ngo Dong learned Vovinam from his brother Ngo Quoc Phong, one of the top 5 students under the style's founder, Grandmaster Nguyen Loc. Another brother taught him Wing Chun, studying under Chinese master Tai Kong. Yet another brother was an Aikido instructor. The Ngo household wasn't just a family. It was a laboratory of fighting systems, each brother bringing home different pieces of the puzzle. And young Ngo Dong absorbed it all, studying the similarities, the contradictions, the places where one style's weakness became another style's strength. When the family moved south to Hue in 1956, Ngo Dong's education continued. He began training in Shotokan karate under Choji Suzuki, a former Japanese captain who demanded perfection. For years, Ngo Dong trained with an intensity that bordered on obsession, drilling techniques until they became instinct, pushing his body until earning his 4th-degree black belt felt inevitable rather than exceptional. He also pursued judo, earning another black belt in that system. But here's what made Ngo Dong different from other masters. He never believed that any single style held all the answers. He saw how karate's linear power could be complemented by Aikido's circular redirection. He understood that judo's throws became more devastating when combined with Wing Chun's close-range striking. He recognized that boxing's footwork and hand speed filled gaps that traditional martial arts sometimes left open. And so in 1965, he founded Cuong Nhu, not as a collection of techniques stolen from other styles, but as a unified system built on a philosophy that respected the wisdom of multiple traditions, hard and soft, external and internal, linear and circular, all of it woven together into something new. But Cuong Nhu was never just about fighting. From the very beginning, Ngo Dong built it on a foundation of something deeper. Self-improvement, community service, love and respect for others. Because in Vietnam at that time, young people needed more than punches and kicks. They needed meaning. They needed purpose in a world that seemed determined to tear itself apart. Grandmaster Dong taught martial arts techniques to help his students build themselves up physically, mentally, and spiritually so they could lead full, complete lives despite the war raging around them. Then came 1968. The Tet Offensive hit like a hurricane and Hue became a battlefield. The violence wasn't just between armies anymore. It spilled into the streets, random and brutal, threatening everyone. And Grandmaster Dong, watching his city descend into chaos, made a choice. He organized the People's Self-Defense Forces of Hue, a civil defense organization designed to protect ordinary citizens from the madness. 25,000 people. That's how many he reached with his program of karate, games, and friendly competition. 25,000 people finding discipline and community and hope in the middle of a war zone. It wasn't just about self-defense. It was about rebuilding morale and spirit when everything else was falling apart. But wars don't last forever, and neither did Grandmaster Dong's time in Vietnam. In 1971, he traveled to the United States to pursue a PhD in entomology at the University of Florida. From organizing 25,000 people in a war-torn city to being a graduate student in Gainesville, Florida. But Grandmaster Dong didn't leave Cuong Nhu behind. In September 1971, he opened the first Cuong Nhu Karate Club in the United States, and it exploded. Within 2 years, it became the largest intramural organization on campus. Students were drawn to that same philosophy of mutual support and cooperation that sustained people in Hue. In the spring of 1973, the Cuong Nhu Karate Association was incorporated to ensure continuity and uniformly high standards of instruction. Grandmaster Dong earned his doctorate in 3 years, then returned to Vietnam in 1974. But the war wasn't over. 1975 brought the fall of Saigon and a new communist government. Grandmaster Dong, an outspoken opponent of communism, was placed under house arrest for having the courage to speak his mind. For a man who had organized 25,000 people, who had founded an entire martial art, who had earned a PhD in a foreign country while simultaneously building the largest club on campus, house arrest must have felt like suffocation. But Grandmaster Dong wasn't finished. He and his family took a risk that would have broken most people. They escaped by boat to Indonesia, leaving everything behind, gambling their lives on the open ocean for a chance at freedom. And they made it. From Indonesia, Grandmaster Dong resumed contact with his former students in the United States. With their help, he returned to America in November 1977 on Homecoming Day. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. He took a position in the University of Florida Entomology Department and resumed teaching Cuong Nhu both on and off campus. The founder was back, and Cuong Nhu was about to enter its golden age. For the next 21 years, Grandmaster Dong oversaw the evolution of a well-organized, comprehensive curriculum for Cuong Nhu. He created training manuals, standardized techniques, and watched individual dojos spread across the United States. Hundreds of students earned their black belts under his guidance. And Grandmaster Dong traveled throughout the country to teach and conduct advanced testing, ensuring quality remained consistent. But illness forced his retirement in the late 1990s. With his retirement imminent, the senior leadership faced a critical decision. Who could carry forward the legacy? They offered the position to Grandmaster Dong's son, Quinn. He was young, still in his 30s, but he showed special talent and dedication to his father's vision. Grandmaster Quinn accepted the responsibility when Cuong Nhu had approximately 75 active dojos in the United States and abroad. For the next 23 years, Grandmaster Cuong Nhu served as the head of style, often with his brothers and sister by his side. He oversaw the standardization of Cuong Nhu's curriculum across as many diverse schools, bringing consistency without sacrificing the individual character of each dojo. He modernized instructional resources, bringing much of the material online and making it accessible to students everywhere. But most importantly, he continued his father's vision of Cuong Nhu as an open-minded and ever-evolving style, studying deeply and being willing to make changes while holding to the style's core principles. He traveled extensively for seminars and Dan rank testing, maintaining the Cuong Nhu tradition of an annual international training camp that felt as much like a family reunion as a rigorous training event. Students from different dojos would gather, not just to train, but to reconnect with the larger Cuong Nhu family, to share techniques and stories and remind themselves that they were part of something bigger than any single school. And then came 2020, the pandemic. In-person training stopped. Dojos went dark, but Grandmaster Quinn, along with many Cuong Nhu instructors, adapted. They taught online. They tested students at a distance. They found ways to preserve the art even when they couldn't gather in person. The Cuong Nhu family proved its resilience once again. But on September 1st, 2021, tragedy struck. Grandmaster Cuong Nhu, in the prime of his life and until then in peak health, became a casualty of the COVID-19 pandemic. The man who had guided Cuong Nhu for 23 years, who had modernized it while preserving its soul, who had carried forward his father's legacy with grace and dedication, was gone. The Cuong Nhu family mourned, but they didn't fracture, because the philosophy that Grandmaster Dong built into the foundation of Cuong Nhu, that emphasis on mutual support and cooperation, on family and continuity, had created something strong enough to survive even this loss. Grandmaster Quinn was succeeded as head of style by Grandmaster John Burns, an early student of Osensei Dong, a member of the panel of masters who had voted that Grandmaster Quinn should succeed his father, an assistant and advisor to Grandmaster Quinn for many years. Grandmaster Burns is positioned to carry forward the legacies of both father and son ensuring that Cuong Nhu will be passed down to the younger generation as a strong and cohesive style. And that's what makes this story remarkable. Not just that a martial art survived a war, or that it successfully transplanted from Vietnam to the United States, or even that it's spread across the world with dozens of active dojos. What makes Cuong Nhu remarkable is that through 3 generations of leadership, through war and displacement and pandemic, through the death of both its founder and his successor, the core philosophy has remained intact. Hard and soft. Discipline and compassion. Technical excellence and spiritual growth. An open-minded, welcoming, and inclusive community that promotes a family-like atmosphere of mutual support and cooperation. From the streets of Hanoi, where young brothers tested their skills against professional fighters, through the chaos of Hue during the Tet Offensive, where 25,000 people found hope in the middle of war, across the ocean to Gainesville, Florida, where a graduate student built the largest club on campus while earning his doctorate, through house arrest and escape by boat and a triumphant return on homecoming day, through 21 years of growth under the founder's guidance, 23 more years under his son, and now into a new era under Grandmaster Burns. This is Cuong Nhu. Hard, soft, a blend of 7 styles that became something entirely its own. A martial art that never forgot it was built to serve people, not the other way around. And somewhere right now, in dojos across the United States and around the world, students are training. They're learning the same techniques that Grandmaster Dong refined decades ago. They're experiencing that same family-like atmosphere that sustained people through a war. They're discovering that martial arts can be about more than fighting, that hard and soft can coexist, that technical excellence and spiritual growth aren't contradictions but complementary parts of a complete life. The legacy continues. The family grows. And the art that began in a war-torn Vietnamese city in 1965 keeps evolving, keeps adapting, keeps proving that something built on the right foundation can survive anything. That's the story of Cuong Nhu. That's what happens when you blend not just techniques but philosophies, not just styles but souls. Hard and soft, working together, stronger than either could ever be alone.